Dear best friend, we don't talk anymore or text or DM each other as young people do these days, but I hope you are doing well. No, not just well, I hope you are thriving and living your best life. I think the last time we actually talked was during my wedding, more than 3 years ago, but I can't really blame our drifting friendship on the COVID-19 pandemic because even back then already we hardly ever spoke. But I knew I wanted everyone at my wedding whom I cared deeply about, so of course I wanted you and your family to be there. I was, to be honest, quite surprised that you actually attended, that you made the effort. It couldn't have been easy traveling internationally with 2 children, but I am so glad you did, and I'm so glad I got to meet your beautiful daughters. You know how with some people you just click right away, you immediately call them a best friend and realize that they're just as weird as yourself? Well, with us it was different. You were the more reserved one out of our friend group, the quieter one, and it wasn't until the second year of knowing each other, when you moved to a flat across the street from me, that I start seeing the quirky side of you. And that's when I realized our similarities in both our goofiness and our perspectives. And during our final year of university and graduate studies, we became flatmates and lived together for 3 years. According to research, proximity of the physical environment is the strongest predictor of friendship. This is known in psychology as the proximity principle. So, the closer you live to someone, the more likely you will become friends. The further away you live, the likelihood of friendship decreases, even during the digital age. So, I guess there's some truth to that if you look at our friendship. And out of the 4 of us, you were the only one I lived with, and you were also the only one that left the UK. So, scientifically speaking, both our friendship and our estrangement were inevitable. I wonder if we would have even become close friends if you never moved in across the street that year. Maybe the proximity gave us the opportunity to actually get to know each other because on the surface, we were quite different. Remember once our professor was talking about the Booba Kiki effect, how we cross-culturally associate different sounds with different shapes. So when we see something round moving slowly, we will want to call it a name like Booba, and something fast and spiky we associate it with a name like Kiki. This has important implications for how spoken language was developed or something like that, but our takeaway from that lecture was how you truly embody the name Booba and how I was truly a Kiki. We laughed at how opposite some of our demeanors actually were. You always being the calm and the soft-spoken one, and I was not. And from that day on, we called each other by these names. So thanks for sticking by me and embracing my silly, spontaneous side. And thanks for showing me how to be more patient and sensible. Growing up, I tended to put my friends into 3 different categories: the fun party friend, the study buddy, and the wise one I will go to for advice. But you really were one of my first all 3-in-1 type of friend, and that's why I consider you one of my best friends. I'd rather have just one 3-in-1 friend than hundreds of friends who can fit in just 1 or even 2 of these categories. Remember how we joked that you were the mom or the obasan of the group? So thanks for being the responsible one and for helping me transition from living in a catered student accommodation to living independently. You were always the mature one, and we all knew you would be the first one out of the 4 of us to get married and to have children. This was always something you wanted when I didn't even know if I ever wanted to get married or not. So I'm happy you're now living out your dream life. You definitely deserve the best that this world has to offer. I visited our university campus the other day. Remember how magical the place was at night with uplighting on the columns, or how it was transformed during the summer ball? Remember how you, Beth, and I went to the campus after midnight randomly and danced to Michael Jackson? We were the only ones there, so it was a bit eerie at that hour, yet it was so enchanting, especially with all the twinkling Christmas lights and the heavy snowfall, which was a rare sight for London, but it made everything so much more mesmerizing. Looking back, maybe I could have been a better friend. I'm sorry I made fun of you for talking to your stuffed animals and giving them names, not foreseeing that today I'm actually doing the exact same thing. I know sometimes I can get petty. I know many times I can be immature and overly competitive. And I'm probably the worst person on the planet when it comes to replying to messages, so I can only really blame distance and the proximity principle to some extent. I know Beth is much better at keeping in contact than me. Sometimes I hear updates about you from her, and I heard that she has visited you after you became a real mom. I'm sorry I never did. I guess my excuse was that I thought you must have been busy. As a new mom, you didn't need another person bothering you. And it's not like there was anything really interesting I could have updated you about my life anyways. I would have just wasted your time. Liking your pictures on social media was probably enough to show that I was still thinking about you. So I'm sorry I never reached out to you to actually ask how you were, but instead I just made these assumptions about what you were thinking and what you wanted. I wanted to write you a proper message, but the longer I waited, the more awkward it got, until somehow it just felt more natural to just stop communicating at all. It's ironic how in a world that feels so small, where everyone feels so connected thanks to the internet, we still somehow manage to lose truly meaningful connections. They say that a friendship that lasts 7 years will likely last forever, and I think especially when the friendship started at or after university, so maybe we just missed the cut. They also say that university is where you make your friends for life. Well, I guess we are the exception. But hey, maybe true friendships like true love are never really lost. Maybe it can feel like it's ended if we don't actually stay in contact, but if destiny ever brings us together again, I hope we will easily pick up from where we left off, and that we will still be able to communicate using purely inside jokes. Remember how this used to drive your husband crazy? He could never understand what we were talking or laughing about. And sometimes the only reason we stopped laughing was because our stomachs hurt too much to continue. So I feel like you will still understand me without me having to say a single word. There are all these articles about how to make friends, but honestly, for me, it was always easier to make than to keep friends. It's so incomprehensible to me that my husband has been friends with his best friend for over 20 years. As much as I admire this bond and have read countless of studies about how friendship is associated with health and well-being, because humans are inherently social creatures, so we should really prioritize our relationships, I also know it's not beneficial to hold on to friendships that have run their course, because unfortunately, friendship, like many other good things in life, is a double-edged sword. It can be the source of our highest highs and the cost of our lowest lows. And after all, I'm more of an introvert and I don't need many friends. They say that if you can count all your true friends on one hand, you're lucky. For me, that number has always been not more than 3. I've always had 3 people I consider my best friends at any different stages of my life, with the next 3 somehow replacing the previous ones. I've always felt pretty lucky about this though, and never felt like I needed more friends. But still, maybe I could have made slightly more of an effort to keep people in my life, especially those whom I at one point consider my best friend. I know you don't necessarily miss me, and that's okay. I hope you're doing well, and I know we have both moved on and our lives are pretty good now without each other. But I also hope you know that you will always be my one and only booba. For those of you watching this video, maybe you have also felt like you've lost a best friend due to whatever reason. I hope you know you're not alone. After all, as the saying goes, people come into our lives for a reason, for a season, or for a lifetime. So it's okay that this happened. I hope you can still recollect the good memories with fondness and carry with you the positives or lessons you've learned from that phase of life. So, have you ever felt like you've lost a close friend along the way? And would you do anything differently knowing what you do now? Thanks for listening, and see you next time.